If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And please join me on my website at nanice.com. Thank you.
It's your time for Chai with Nanice. Get ready for substance, clarity, change, and especially empowerment. Get ready to turn over stones, uncover stories, and get to the heart of the matter in every area of your life. Any mood runs, any emotion flies, and your dreams are within your grasp. There are no limits or boundaries, and your comfort zone is out of reach, yet it's the safest place you will ever be. Come in, sit down, and have some chai with Nanice.
Welcome to Chai with Nanice. I'm Nanice. Today's show, I'm going to start off a little bit different than I have in the past. I'm actually going to read you a story from my Even Gandhi Got Hungry and Buddha Got Mad book. And the story is called The Wizard. There once was a great leader and wizard of a mystical land who knew how to create all he desired through his thoughts, feelings, and intentions. One day he went on a walk through his beautiful forest. He experienced the splendid smell of exotic flowers, the playful sound of animals, the vast blueness of the eternal sky, and the luxurious, moist grass beneath his bare feet. He was both intoxicated by the experience and amused by it, for he knew that he was the creator of all that is. He knew that he created the exotic flowers, the melodic birds, the eternal, silky sky, and the wild grass below his bare feet, simply with the magic of his mind. He rejoiced in his creations as he continued to walk. In his intoxication, well, he must have been having an out-of-body experience, he fell and hit his head. When he awoke just minutes later, he couldn't remember anything of his life before or his magical powers. He couldn't remember his magical powers. He couldn't remember who he was. Suddenly, he was experiencing himself to be alone in a very scary forest. The birds sounded like wild hawks ready to attack. The sky looked ominous, and without shoes, he was subject to all sorts of dangers. Without remembering who he was, he experienced himself as frightened and powerless. Instead of acting fearlessly as the creator of all around him, he began to make up stories about himself and his life, just like all humans do who don't remember their own magic and power. Stories that made him feel weak and vulnerable. Trying to make meaning out of his experience, which is what humans do as well, he told himself that someone must have beaten him up and dragged him into the forest to die. Why else would he have a huge, painful bump on his head and be barefoot in this dangerous forest? Maybe this person was watching him now and was ready to pounce on him at any moment. He could feel fear pulse through his body. He got up and began to move. But as he did, he heard wild animals in the forest, and he was certain that they too wanted to kill him. He knew he had to defend himself as he made a spear. He would kill them first, and that is exactly what he did. He spent the rest of his life in the unforgiving forest simply trying to survive by killing anything that seemed to pose a threat. He lived his entire life just trying to survive and never again enjoying the life that he himself could not remember creating. For years, the townspeople looked for him, but could not find him. He had learned to be a good warrior and hid well when he perceived himself to be hunted. One day, when he was dying, one of the townspeople stumbled across his weary body. The townsman almost didn't recognize the wizard because his appearance had changed so drastically. The townsman bent down to the wizard to offer him help, but the wizard glared back with his fear and distrust. The townsman tried to remind the wizard of who he was and that he was the creator of all that he experienced. Although the wizard felt something familiar, like in a dream, in the man's words, the wizard was too caught up in 30 years of his own story to remember. When the wizard died that day and awoke from his story in the afterlife, he clearly saw that even in his ignorance to uncover who he was, he invented a convincing story about life. Once he created this disempowering story, he spent the rest of his life proving it was true. He laughed when he realized that even in his seeming powerlessness, he had still created all around him. He saw that as his story became one of survival and fear, the force actually changed to make his story true. The animals did in fact become vicious, the plants poisonous, and real dangers lurked at every turn. Whether the wizard remembered his powers or not, he was still creating everything around him. He was still a great, powerful, spiritual being, whether he knew himself to be so or not. The wizard, when he forgot who he was, and he woke up trying to make meaning of a senseless experience with no memories of anything that happened, he began to tell himself stories that he was in danger, that the forest was dangerous, that somebody was hunting him. They wanted to kill him. Once he started telling him these stories and believing these stories and living these stories out, his powerlessness dropped down into depression. In order to be depressed, you first have to feel powerless. People who feel and know and express their intrinsic power don't get depressed. People who depress, repress, suppress their intrinsic power become depressed. Today we are talking about transforming depression. This is a subject very near and dear to my heart because I was chronically depressed well into my 20s. And when I look back, I can see that even my childhood I was depressed. In my teenage years I was depressed. And it was a long, slow journey to move out of that. And my experience of healing the depression, or remembering who I really was exactly that. My experience was the more I remembered who I was, the more I expressed myself, my creativity, my power, who I really was, the less and less depressed I experienced myself to be. Until finally one day, I awoke into the full knowing of who I really am. Suddenly, I remembered and owned who I really am. And at that moment, any source of depression is not possible. Depression does not happen to people who really know who they really are, who really know their intrinsic power, who really know themselves to be extraordinary creators. So, in this conversation about transforming depression, my amazing guest on the show today is Jenna Grayson. Jenna Grayson is a certified hypnotherapist and energy healer. She also facilitates reconnecting you to your own immune well-being. She tailors the sessions specifically to your individual needs and intentions. Whether it be alleviating pain, creating a deep experience of calm and relaxation, prompting your body's own immune response, reprogramming non-supportive beliefs. Jenna uses tools and techniques that gently and compassionately move you forward towards freedom and healing. Jenna Grayson specializes in medical hypnotherapy and energy healing geared towards those with autoimmune disorders for the purpose of maximizing the mind-body's ability to restore its natural state of well-being and rejuvenate the immune system naturally. She works with your energy system as well as the immune intelligence within the body, within the subconscious mind, to promote and restore well-being. Many of her clients describe the experience of hypnotherapy and energy healing as extremely relaxing, nurturing, restorative, and even transformational. So without further ado, Jenna, welcome to Chai. Thanks for having Chai with me today.
Hi, Nanice. It's my pleasure to have Chai with you. Thank you so much for sharing with me.
Oh, I've been looking forward to it. You are definitely a light in this world. Yeah.
Thank you. Bless you. I appreciate that.
So, you and I have talked a little bit about depression, and you did express that that was something that, like me, you had experienced in your life. Would you be willing to share that experience with our listeners? Because that would be very powerful.
Absolutely, Nanice. I'm grateful to share the story. I think it's really important that we share our stories, especially once we've come out of them, to give hope and remembering to the people who are still in it that there is healing available, that it is not only possible, but it is natural for us to heal and to come out of our struggles and our sufferings, and that our struggles and sufferings aren't there to keep us there. You know, like the story, the man who forgot. I don't think we came here to struggle and suffer and forget and remain in ignorance, but rather that we've come forth to experience all that is here for us to experience, and to choose whatever experiences we want, and then to come back to the truth and come back into healing and come back into our wholeness. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to share my experience with the light, and knowing that that I can stand as an example for those who might still be in that place of struggle.
Right.
So I, my experience with depression, I had two what would be considered bouts with depression. The second one was more severe and more serious and longer. And so I think I'm going to focus on that one a little bit more. The first one, I didn't really consider myself to be depressed.
Right.
Although I went to see a psychiatrist, and he put me on antidepressants, and when it lifted, that's when I realized that I had been depressed. And like you, I'm not really sure when it started or if it was something that was sort of with me my whole life.
Yeah.
And then the second bout, so it got a lot better, and then I ended up traveling overseas for a long time, which was a really wonderful experience. But then the depression came back, and it was stronger and bigger. And I hadn't addressed anything. You know, I just took medication, and it made me feel better. And so I thought I was good. I thought I was chemically balanced and fixed.
Yeah.
And so the second bout with depression was a life-threatening experience for me. For over 2 years, I thought about my own death every day, and it was something that I contemplated from a place of desperation and hopelessness and a sense of helplessness that I thought I had no other options, and it was a relief for me to think about my own death.
Yeah.
And after thinking about it for a while, I started to recognize that I wasn't choosing those thoughts anymore, that they were coming forth. And they sort of scared me, but I also did find relief in them. And then one day came where I recognized that after I tried several different antidepressants with the second bout with depression, and they weren't helping me, and I knew that I needed to find my own healing. I knew I needed to heal what was coming forth for me, that I couldn't just try to mask the symptoms. It wasn't working for me to mask the symptoms. And, I really think that from a deeper place within me, a wiser place within me, I rejected those antidepressants in a sense, because I knew I needed to heal all the pain that was in my body, the pain that was in my mind, the suffering and the thoughts and the grief and all that I'd experienced, and I knew I needed to really address that. So I sought my own healing, and I went the alternative route, as it's still called, but it was really helpful for me, and it took me a long time too, and it was a day-by-day thing, moving back into life, moving back into living in the living world. And there came a day when I was recognizing the suicidal thoughts, and I said to myself, all right, Jenna, look, either you're going to act on these thoughts and you're going to let yourself have this if you want it, or we've got to move on. We've got to stop thinking about this because it's keeping you stuck. And so it was at that point that I said, you know what, I can't keep thinking about this because it's keeping me stuck in this, like, 1 foot in life and 1 foot in death. Yeah. And I think that was a really powerful turning point for me, was just to decide to live, like to decide to really live, to heal and to live well and to be healthy. And then once that happened, it was a beautiful process of unfolding, of healing for me, and I learned so much, and the universe really has aligned with me in such a powerful way that has been really empowering for me and enlightening for me, and just come with a lot of grace and as well as patience, and not always easy, but it's been a beautiful process, and I recognize that, like the man in the story, I really believe that I chose this path to learn about healing, to learn about suffering, to learn compassion, to learn a lot of things that have been gifts for me in this path. And so it has been an empowering experience in a lot of ways. Yeah. And I know that that's possible for everyone. It's just a matter of remembering. We have to remember who we are, like you said. We have to remember who we are to get out of the story that we're sick, that we're broken, that we're not able to heal for whatever reason, even if it's in your genetics. Because I'll tell you that I don't know about you, Nanice, but it's on both sides of my family. It's in my mom's side of the family. It's in my dad's side of the family. So for me, part of the challenge was to say, was to move away from saying, well, it's just the way that I am. It's in my genetics. And just saying, how can I heal this? How can I heal this despite my genetics? Yeah. And I'll tell you, I've come across science that supports evidence that supports that we can heal our very genetics, our DNA.
Oh, absolutely. Even. It's actually easy. It's done on a theta level. I do this all the time with people and clients. Yeah, it's really cool.
Wonderful.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So it's super cool. I mean, it's an amazing thing for so many reasons. It's an amazing time to be on the planet because science itself is showing this, that we can heal our very genetics. It's this thing that for so long, for hundreds of years now, we've said, this is your genetics, you're a physical being, and this is just the way that you are. And so you can take a little white pill and try to feel better, but don't expect to really heal it. But now where we are, science is saying you can heal it, that you've come forth in the human form to heal these things that are patterns that reflect your thoughts and beliefs of your family. Yes. And that's what's showing up in the physical form. It's not just a physical form independent of our thoughts and our beliefs and the essence of our being, the vibrations that we're holding, the ways that we're holding ourselves separate from love. That's really what the healing is about, too, is coming back into love and the powerful force that love is.
Right, which is all a part of remembering who you really are. Because when you remember who you really are, suddenly you experience this love as both a flow of coming to you and going out from you simultaneously, so that it's one. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So that's I really see that as the greatest healer, is just coming back into love, and that's the most powerful force of healing that I know of, is just coming back into love. And we all have our own form and our own sort of flavor or essence of the experience that we have in this human form, and we have our own experience of what troubles us and what our suffering is, what our state of, what the cause of our dis-ease is, but it's really all just one at the same time, and that is the ways in which we hold ourselves separate from love, the ways that we hold ourselves separate from who we really are, as you said.
Right. And we hold ourselves separate, period, even from ourselves.
Yes.
Right? Yes, if we're holding ourselves separate from someone else, that really can only be a reflection and says that we're holding ourselves separate from ourselves in some way.
That's right.
Yeah. It's a return to self. You know, that's what I think of healing. It's like a return to self. It's a return to wholeness. It's remembering, putting all the parts, the members of your body, your consciousness back together. That's right. So that the puzzle is complete and you are living from that wholeness.
That's right, and it's always there. It's always been there. It's just us that's held ourselves separate from it. Yeah, it's like the ultimate forgetting, and you know, for me, part of my healing was to find a philosophy, a spiritual philosophy or spiritual path that taught me about the ways to come back to myself and the ways that I was whole all along, and why I would choose this for myself. And I do believe that I've chosen this for myself, and I believe we all choose our own suffering, even if it's not at a conscious level, because I think very easily we could all say, well, why in God's name would I choose this suffering for myself? I wouldn't choose this for myself. That doesn't make any sense. But to find meaning and why we would choose it, there is that opportunity to find meaning in our suffering. And when we can find meaning in it, sometimes it doesn't happen until you're out of it, until later. Right. But when you can find meaning in it, then that's where the power in it is. That's where your own power is as well.
Yeah. So the way that I think of suffering, suffering is like going through that birth canal. So it's like really constricted, awesome. And it's that. Right. It's that. Yeah. And so from this perspective, that suffering is necessary in order for rebirth to happen.
Yes. It's funny because I love that metaphor as well. And another way that I think of it that's a similar metaphor is the idea of going into the cocoon. Because for me, my experience with being in this severe depression for many years, it was like being in a cocoon, but I didn't know I was in the cocoon.
Right.
And so I sometimes think about the caterpillar and its transformation, and when it's in the cocoon, does it know it's in a cocoon? I wonder that, and I have to imagine that it gets broken down, that in its process of developing and changing from the caterpillar to the butterfly, that it must be getting broken down in some way. It must be getting sort of torn apart from what it had always been in order to become what it was intending for itself to be.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful and free and light and inspiring, and so we have to go through, I believe we have to go through, we all have to go through our own form of it, in one sense or another, to be in that cocoon state in order to come out and share the gifts and talents that is within us, is in that wholeness.
Yeah. The difference between the caterpillar, turning into the butterfly, and us, moving towards our own awakening and transformation, is that caterpillar is not resisting the process. It's natural. Yeah, and so there's no suffering. But we as humans, because we've got all these stories going on, and most of them having to do with survival and survival of identity and all that, we've got all these stories going on, so it's like we resist that process. We resist the metamorphosis, and we resist the transformation. We resist the death of the old, and I think that's where all the pain and suffering comes from.
Yeah. That's awesome. So in that way, the caterpillar can be really inspiring to us to say, how can I let go even more into this experience? And I think that's really powerful healing as well, is to let go and to surrender and to let life flow through you and let the experience flow through you. And so it's a reminder, too, that right where we are, no matter where we are on our path, whether we're coming out into a place of greater freedom or we're feeling stuck and feeling helpless or hopeless, that right where you are right now is important.
Right.
And it's necessary and it's good. And if you can let go into it and know that things can get better and will get better.
And that's how they get better faster, by letting go and sinking into them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I had had more of this knowledge during the process, but it's really a lot of what brought me out, too. So I'm very grateful that I did finally find it,
Right. Yeah. So what we're talking about, resisting the process and, creating the suffering, it brought to mind something that happened earlier today. And we found out that April, my daughter-in-law's grandmother, had passed last night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, it was time, and she's getting ready to go, so it wasn't like a huge surprise, but, it's still, it's sad, and there's grieving going on. And so this morning, April just, she was like, she's looking at me, and we're in the kitchen. She's going, it's just so hard. It's just so hard. And I hugged her, and I said, if you just let go and just allow it to process through you, not even that you have to process it, allow it to process through you, then it can be easy. Relax, and it's easy. Just let it fall, let it move, and it's easy. And so there in my arms, she just completely let go. She was just like, and she just, let all the tears out. She let everything out. And then she said, wow, I feel really peaceful now.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well done, Nanice. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great story. That's a great lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because suffering can only happen in the resistance. Would you agree with that, Jenna?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in contrast to thinking about or remembering who we really are, that it's all flow, it's all well-being that's seeking to flow through us.
Right.
And so it's the resistance to that well-being, to the nature of all of our experiences. It's the resistance that gets us stuck and makes it hard and makes it hurt. Yeah. And that's not to say that, we're not going to feel hurt, or we're not going to feel the emotions, but I think we can really learn from children in that way, too, that they don't resist their emotions unless, they're really taught to.
Right.
But they feel it full on. They feel it full out, and they fully express it. And they don't have any ego about it. They're not saying, am I going to humiliate myself, or or is this socially inappropriate? They just feel it, and then they move on, and they don't hold resentments, and they don't hold grudges, and they don't hold it in their body, and Because
it processes through them. They don't hold it back. It processes through them. Exactly.
Yeah. It's only so later that we learn that we think that we're supposed to hold these things back. So I think that's really an important element, too, to the process of healing and coming out of depression, too, is to allow the feelings to move through you, allow yourself to be heard, express your experience, and know that it's valuable, and that there's people available that care. And that was something that was really healing for me, and something that I learned from one of my wonderful teachers is to let yourself be heard, to
hear yourself. To hear yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
Because it's just about us. Everything else is just a reflection out there. So if somebody's not hearing me or no one's hearing me, it's because I'm not hearing myself.
Absolutely.
It can't be any other way. Life tells us exactly what's going on if we pay attention to it and stop judging it and trying to make it different. It tells us exactly what's going on and how we're creating and why we're creating the things that we are. I love this piece about emotions. And we're now, I see that we're in this time that it's people are learning to express their emotions more and more. But, I know when I grew up and my parents grew up and all that, it was like you kept your emotions down. You bottled them up and, you did things. You suppressed them. You depressed them, became depressed, all of that. And what I recently understood at a very, very deep level is that emotions are the pathway to uncovering who we really are. Emotions are the pathway to God or higher power, to the absolute. That's the pathway. So it's like, so everybody's, going around today, not everybody, but a lot of people going around today, and they're like, well, how do I connect, with my divine power? How do I connect with God? And, we're beginning to learn that can only be done inside, that the journey's inside. So the next question should be, well, how do I get inside? And, of course, people use meditation, a whole bunch of other things, but there's a natural path. And the way in which we get inside is through the emotions, that we allow ourselves to move on the river of emotions and allow it to take us deep, deep within ourselves. And at that place, the emotion is transformed. The emotion is healed and back to our harmonic state with all that is. And in that place, we discover more of who we really are, and we have a greater connection with the divine force of all.
Beautiful. That's really beautiful. Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. There's that powerful connection there, and it's allowing our full experience to be expressed and felt. And I know that it's important for us. I know that it's healthy for us. And I also want to say, though, that just to add to this, that for the times when I was really deep into the experience of depression, that I could get really swept up by my own emotion and get sort of stuck in it. So what I found to be helpful for myself is to allow the fullness of the emotion to be experienced, and then for there to be an ending, to allow there to be an ending. Right,
to allow there to be an ending,
Yeah, exactly, to allow there to be an ending.
Yeah, and because if you really drop into it, there is an ending. There is a completion of that cycle. There is. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to know that it's safe to have the fullness of that experience, because there will be an ending. It's like if we feel grief and allow ourselves to feel the fullness of the grief and allow that energy to move through the body, to allow it to be felt completely, it can be scary, because what if you get stuck there, But to know that it won't get stuck, that you won't get stuck, that's not the nature of the emotion. The nature of the emotion is for it to move. It's energy in motion. It's meant to be in motion. Yes. And then once you allow it to move, then there will be that ending, and just to allow that ending as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is important stuff, and I'm really grateful to share this. And for anybody who's, in the midst of experiencing it or knowing somebody who is, just to remember and to be bringing back the members, as you were saying, Nanice, of our awareness, that we know that our healing is possible, that we know that we've come forth for great reasons to express the truth of our being. And as we allow this to happen, as we allow our healing to happen individually, then collectively we are healed as well. This is something that's happening already on the planet, that healing is happening now at the perfect timing, because the earth and all of its inhabitants really need to be healed. So, something that I realized in my path was that my healing was everybody's healing, but in my seeking it and committing to it, that I made it possible for other people too.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. And it is the earth itself that's being healed as it's like we're cells on the earth. Sometimes I see that as like an image that it's like we're cells on this living being called the earth, and as we heal ourselves and come back into truth, then there's like a harmonic on the earth that gets shifted in the resonance of our healing, and that's happening now. It's a remarkable thing that we're both, being shown great suffering on the planet, and we're being shown remarkable healing, things that would have been called miracles.
Yes.
Not long ago. You know about this too. I know you do, Nanice, because you participate in it. You create it as well. You're part of that realm. And so, healing now is happening faster too. It can happen literally in a moment.
Yes.
Or it can take some time too. I think we can choose that too if we want it to sort of be a more gradual experience. Because it does take courage to heal. We have to be willing to let go of everything that we've been.
Right.
We have to be willing to let go of everything that we've become to be who we really are.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, and the gift of it is that becoming who you really are is far easier and more fun and more empowering and more joyful. But it takes courage. It does.
Yeah. Yeah, because we've been brought up in a society that judges our worth, and therefore we judge our own worth depending on, how we show up in the world, if we fail or succeed, if we're good or bad, if we're right or wrong. These programs start very young and really get initiated as soon as we start school. As soon as we start school, we're in that program of right and wrong, good and bad, failure, success, and it's all under this umbrella of worthiness.
Yes,
and so then we spend the whole rest of our lives, if we've been brainwashed for many, many years, we spend the whole rest of our lives believing that we have to prove our worthiness in order to survive and be okay. And so this program of worthiness, unworthiness is running us.
Yeah.
And really, it's natural to know who we really are. It's natural to know our worthiness. The beautiful thing about now, things are accelerated for so many reasons, and people are waking up, and they're beginning to realize that, they've been brainwashed, quote unquote, by systems and societies and, schools and governments and religions and all that, and they're beginning to think for themselves, and that's truly the awakening. Like, I see the end of depression as the awakening. Like, you can't be awake and be depressed. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And in that way, it's an awesome tool. It's like this great gift. And the more we can remember that it's a gift that we've called forth, that we are wanting to wake up. It's like the dream has become too painful to stay asleep. And so we allow ourselves to be really confronted by the ways that we've held ourselves separate from the truth, the ways we've held ourselves separate from ourselves.
Yes.
And so we, get really squished into this space of looking at ourselves until we are willing to wake up and say yes to life and yes to truth and yes to our own power and freedom and love and joy. And that's really just, what a remarkable gift. And that's something that I'm very grateful for.
Yeah. 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 And we were designed to wake up. And then part of that design was that, that the more and more asleep we were, the more and more pain we experienced, and the greater need to stop the pain, which either meant, leaving this planet or waking up. And so the pressure, all that pressure, like at the birth canal again, the pressure pushing down you, that's what pushes the baby out, the pressure, that suffering, that it pushes us out into this place of transformation.
That's right. And it is like a death in a way, and that's something that I think is really important to acknowledge, is death itself as a process, both while we're living as well as, when I say when we're living, I mean living in this body, in this physical form. It's important to know that death is okay and that it's necessary, and that we can embrace it both while we're in the body as well as in the transition from the body. Right. And death has been a great teacher to me, what we call death, even though there's no real death. I mean, death is the end of life, and there's no end of life. And this is something that we know now, even through science. It's like, again, what a remarkable time we're in when science is catching up with spirituality and metaphysics, ancient wisdom, sages and saints over ages have been talking about that spirit is everywhere. And it never dies. And so, another one of the gifts that I found in my experience with depression, as hard as it was going through it, was coming close to death, was recognizing and thinking about what death meant for me and what that meant. You know, not only in the experience of it, even though that was part of it and that was important, but essentially was coming into the willingness to die. Yeah. And that was a
surrender.
Huge, yes. Yeah. Well, both. I mean, both in terms of, you know, the willingness to die in the physical form, as well as the willingness to die to everything that I had become. Because of the suicidal thoughts, because of my willingness to think about no longer being physical, I realized that I could have that experience. What I knew in my own way, in my own heart, what it would be like to be non-physical, and I knew it was going to be easier. And so I wanted things to be easier, and because I felt hopeless and helpless and just desperate, I didn't know how to make things easier at the time. Right. So I knew things would be easier if I was non-physical, but then I realized when I came to that place where I decided I wasn't going to take my physical life, that I could allow myself to be in that non-physical form, that non-physical state, while I was still in the physical form.
Right. Yeah.
Do you follow what I'm saying?
I totally follow what you're saying.
Yeah. So it was like I recognized...
an alignment happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I recognized that the heaven that I was seeking, I just wanted to be in heaven. I just wanted to be in heaven, and I still do. Yeah. I still do. But I recognize that heaven is an experience. Right. It's a state of consciousness that exists within all of us, and it's with us now. Yeah. Even in the density of this physical form, in this physical plane, we can still seek it. We can still seek to create it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's beautifully said.
Thank you.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and I like what you said about, you know, there's no real death. It's interesting because yesterday what I was shown was that all our lifetimes that we've, you know, been here on this planet, that it's not really all these lifetimes. I was shown that it's one lifetime.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And it just starts, you know, just like, you know, it has a pause button and then starts over again. And if we were to remember and look at all our lives on this planet as humans, that what we would see is this growth and evolution from one life to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And so, you know, carrying from one life to the next, you know, wounds that need to be healed, misbeliefs, misperceptions, you know, all of that, even relationships with other people that need to be, and we're, you know, it's like not only do we get another chance to heal misbeliefs and pain and open our heart, but it's designed that way. That was how it was predetermined. So it's no other way. You know, it's like our awakening is guaranteed. It's guaranteed.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we would have it no other way. It's such a perfect system. It's such a magnificent, intelligent, loving system. Mm-hmm. And I really think we would have it no other way. You know, it's like the idea, you know, that you are where you are because you created it, because you chose it, because you worked for it, because you aligned with it. But if somebody had come along and just waved a magic wand and created it all for you, it wouldn't have the sweetness and it wouldn't have the celebration that it has available for it to your life now. You know what I mean? Like if we could just pray and it all be swept away and it all be taken care of, then life would be flat. But because we go through challenges and we choose our way out and we find our way out from lifetime to lifetime, there is magnificence in that. That is powerful. It is us remembering our magic powers, like you're talking about in the story. Yeah. I really believe we all have magic powers. We really do. We're just coming back into remembering them.
Yes.
And one of the magical powers that we have is to heal ourselves, is to forgive ourselves, is to forgive others, and to set ourselves free.
Right.
Yeah, from the bonds that have kept us imprisoned or ignorant for lifetimes. And there is that, I see it as like a ribbon going through one lifetime to another. It's like an essence of who you are, and it's like the story that you carry along and that transforms around the ribbon. But it's you carrying you all the way through with you. And when we don't resolve things in this lifetime, it does get carried into the next lifetime. And I don't think that that's unfortunate. Like there's a part of my mind that's like, well, that's unfortunate.
No, it's
not unfortunate, right? Yeah. Yeah, it is great.
It's perfect,
It's
and
an
we
awesome
agreed
system.
to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
We created it because we would have it no other way. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
That's something that's been a really powerful teacher for me, actually, is having memories of past lives. And that's something that really solidified the belief for me in reincarnation, was experiencing my own memories and recognizing the ways that those experiences are showing up now in perfect reflection. And it's not that they're exactly the same thing in terms of who's who in the story, you know what I mean? Like, my dad was my daughter in a past life, and I did to him, as my daughter, what has happened in this life. So it's perfect, and it's really magnificent how this happens, and it's something that I now guide people through as well, is their own past life regression experiences, so that they can have clarity to who and what they've created now and make it different now, so that it can be more peaceful and harmonious for the future as well as for now.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Jenna, earlier you mentioned that the universe aligned with you as you were moving out of the depression. How did the universe align with you?
Oh, that makes me feel emotional. Well, it's, I feel like I can answer that from like an intellectual perspective.
No. Answer it from a heart perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, first I just want to say that I know that the universe is wanting this for all of us, that it's waiting for us to surrender to it, and to allow it to flow through our lives. But how the universe aligned with me?
Yes.
Well, it brought me so many opportunities and so many gifts and so much love and so much beauty and so much grace. That was my healing, was my path to healing, that has been my path to healing. And I don't know that I always saw it that way, but as it was happening, there was resistance still, but as I reflect back on it and I look at it, it's like the whole universe has been wanting me to really just spread my wings and to remember who I am and to expand in that and to allow it and to let the well-being that was always there within me to just flow through me.
Yes.
And I feel this great connection to the whole universe as it is supporting me even now, even in this moment right now. And because of this experience, because of all of this, and I feel a connection with my angels, and I feel a connection with, which I mean, years ago I wouldn't have said that, but because I've come out of this, I feel this beautiful connection with God or the universe, or the spirit that is loving, that is always loving me. And I'm now in a place where I feel like I can communicate and immediately receive response. And it's always loving, and it's always gentle, and it's always compassionate. And I see that it's an opportunity for all of us to come back to that place within ourselves to communicate in that way too, so that loving and compassionate and supportive voice that's never judging us, that's never holding us separate, is always there within me. That's always there within me. That's available to me. And the universe, I think the universe aligned with my healing far before I did. So, it was like
you just aligned with the universe so that healing could be facilitated.
That's probably
you stopped
more
resisting
true.
the universe.
That's probably more true,
It's funny.
Yeah.
So, Jenna, we only have a couple minutes left, and I want to ask you if you have any closing words for our listeners, and also, how can people get in touch with you?
Okay, sure. Closing words. My primary message that I want to communicate is that healing is available to everyone, no matter where you are, if you're interested in it, and that the universe is aligning with you already, and that your healing is available already. to seek out your healing and to say yes to yourself and your life if you want that. And not everybody wants that, and that's okay too. And that in that place of healing is aligning with the heaven as it exists within you now, that you don't have to wait till you die to go to heaven, that heaven's available for us now, it's available for us on the earth. And
Yes.
my healing is your healing, and your healing is everyone else's healing too.
Wow. So beautiful.
Thank you.
Great wisdom. Great
Yay.
wisdom. Yeah. Thank you for sharing it. I could feel it from your heart. This isn't wisdom from the head. This is wisdom from the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. I love you. And how can people get in touch with you?
Thanks. Right now my website is not up, but it's innerremedies.com, and a way that you can connect with me more quickly and immediately is by visiting a different website, which is altmd, altmd.com. And then you can either do a search for me. My name is Jenna Grayson, spelled JennaGrayson, or you can go to altmd.com/specialist/Jenna-Grayson.
And I'll add to that if they just want to contact me, I'll forward you the email. So
okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's easy too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Jenna. You're awesome.
You're welcome. Thank you, Nanice. Appreciate
Happy
it so
New
much.
Year, sweetie. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Talk to you.
Bye. Yeah. Wow. It's a powerful conversation about transforming depression. I want to end today's show with another story in regards to the wizard. And this is called Waking Up. No one ever judged the sleeping wizard, for even in his amnesia, he was still the wizard. No one is judging you for your amnesia or me for mine in not remembering who we are. And there is no reason to judge yourself. In fact, the judgment keeps you drugged and invested in your stories. It keeps you depressed. If you want to begin to wake up, either because you know it is time or your story has become too painful, simply start questioning your story. Start asking yourself, where did my story begin? How do I know it's true? And finally, create a new story which supports a higher version of the life you really want to create. The human mind has a need to make sense of everything. It is part of how we survive. It is a survival mechanism. By giving things meaning, it gives us a sense of security, and that enables us to function in the world, even if that meaning makes us feel like helpless little children. The problem with the stories we tell ourselves is that we start telling them well before we can even walk or talk. Babies start defining their worlds by the stories they make up about everything around them. They decide whether it is safe or scary, whether they are lovable or unlovable, and whether they can take chances or must protect themselves. And then spend the rest of their lives living out these stories, these beliefs, these paradigms. Our personalities are defined before the age of 5 because we already know enough stories. We already have enough stories in place to have a sense of certainty and knowingness about life and who we think we are. But these are just stories. And how can you be certain about a story? Then we spend the rest of our lives proving that our stories are true. That's not hard to do because, unless challenged, the mind will select only information that supports our stories. But, even more importantly, the universe constantly reorganizes itself to make our stories right. Our stories, which are not collective thoughts, our stories, which are our collective thoughts, create exactly what we experience. Every time we give energy to a story, we are sending out energy that reorganizes or reinforces the energy that makes up the reality, all that we know and experience. In other words, thoughts, feelings, and intentions are the fabrics of creating the lives we experience. And we are no more victims of circumstance or karma than our bodies are victims to unhealthy elements that we ingest. There's nothing wrong with creating life through the stories we tell. It's all part of the grand adventure. The problem is we have forgotten that we are the storytellers and creators of what we call reality. And as a result, we experience tons of pain and suffering. That in itself is another grand spiritual adventure. But for many of us, we are tired of that same old painful adventure. And we are ready to experience adventures of joy, peace, and love. In order to experience that new adventure, we need a new story, a story that supports joy, peace, and love. But even more difficult than creating a new story is giving up the old one. When we have decades invested in the old story, it's hard to give it up. It's what has shaped our personality, identity, and knowing of ourselves. It has created a sense of human security, and it is all we know. Giving up the story means giving up a part of ourselves, and it can be scary and overwhelming. You can't give up the story overnight, but you can start questioning the story. As you pick at it little by little, the story, like a scab over a healed cut, will fall away to reveal new flesh and a new life. You and the power of who you are really are and still exist under your story. Not even the best or most painful story in the world can destroy the truth of who you really are. In your perfection, in your powerfulness, you are divine. And when you remember who you really are, the journey of emotions always leads to a place of joy and bliss. And remembering who you are requires the willingness to make that journey. Please visit me on my website at nanice.com. That's NANICE.com. And if you're interested in the book that I read 2 stories from today, it's Even Gandhi Got Hungry and Buddha Got Mad. So that's available on my website. And I also have a 4-book special for $30. It's an awesome deal. My best books that I've written that I love. And email me. Let me know who you are. Let me know what you want to hear on China. Let me know your epiphanies or realizations or experience from listening to the show and how that affects you in your life. I want to hear from you. And remember, go on my website and take the pledge to transform your life. Read tons of free articles on awakening, enlightening, and becoming who you really are. There's free song downloads and a free book download as well. It's an amazing, positive, extraordinary journey on Nanice.com. Till next week, you have been listening to Chai with Nanice. I'm Nanice. Have a wonderful week and Happy New Year.
Thank you for having Chai with Nanice. Please go to www.nanice.com for great free stuff that will empower you to live your best possible life. Free books, articles, shows, meditation audios, and so much more at nanice.com. That's NANICE.com. Nanice's books are also available in all major bookstores and Amazon. Check out The Infinite Power of You, Even Gandhi Got Hungry and Buddha Got Mad, Zest Point, Lip Prints, and many others by Nanice Ellis. To find out about one-on-one coaching and how Nanice can personally coach you to experience your best life possible, please email mybestlife@nanice.com.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And please join me on my website at nanice.com. That's NANICE.com. Thank you.